Thanks for joining us, Charlotte.
No, thank you for having me. It is wonderful to be here, and talking about money and financial well-being is like my favourite thing. So it's hardly feels like a chore at all.
So hi to anyone watching, and good evening. Welcome. I'm Sam from Loqbox.
And I'm Kat from Loqbox.
And if you're new here, then we're the money app giving people the tools they need to build a really strong financial future.
In today's live, we're joined by Charlotte Jessop, aka Looking After Your Pennies, for a Q&A and discussion on building new money habits.
And Charlotte will be ready to offer tips and tricks to help you reach your goals and revolutionise your relationship with money in 2023. So I hope you're ready, Charlotte.
Always ready.
Absolutely ready.
But before we get started, we just want to let you know that we won't be able to answer questions about Loqbox membership on this live this evening. Your financial information is private, so we can't discuss it live. But if you head to the link in our bio, you will find a link to speak to our friendly support team. Just check the click on the purple button and you'll be able to chat to them, and they'll be available to answer any queries.
And if you do have any questions throughout the live, don't forget you can pop them in the comments box at the bottom, and we'll come to those at the end. So for those of you who don't already know her, Charlotte Jessop is the financial educator, coach, writer, vlogger and podcaster. Just a few hats there, Charlotte, behind the Looking After Your Pennies platform. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. How's your day been?
Yeah, it's been an interesting day. It's been a day that's been kind of affected by teacher strikes, but it's actually been a really positive day. But I am tired.
Yeah, understandable. I think if any, one of the things that came out of the pandemic, wasn't it, was like having the kids at home a lot was was quite tiring for a lot of parents.
Yeah, this has been like a little taster of going back to that. I'm like, I love my kids, but wow, you're exhausting.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Charlotte, so just before we get into the Q&A, we'd like to talk a little bit more about you and how you really get started with what you do now. So across social media, you're known as Looking After Your Pennies. What is the story behind that name? Was it something that you chose because of a particular reason?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's it's hard when you start something, you start like an Instagram account, you start a business, like getting the name right is tricky, plus you're competing against like all the other people that have ever thought up a name vaguely related to money. But this one was kind of I don't know, special to me. It's that phrase, isn't it? You know, like if you look after your pennies, the pounds will take care of themselves. And this was something that I had my nan say a lot to me, and my nan was quite a role model to me, particularly financially. I don't think I really realised that until I reached adulthood. But she worked as a mortgage advisor, and you think as a woman, who in the sort of 80s and 90s working as a mortgage advisor, it's kind of like, well, it didn't happen a lot, and my nan was one of those people. So it was kind of, she was somebody that I could look up to as being good with money, and she always sort of helped my parents out with making their financial decisions. So for a phrase like this to come from a role model in this area sort of just spoke to me as like, oh well, I should this is like a little nod to her. But also that the phrase is great because the habits and the things that you do well with the smaller amounts of money also work well with bigger amounts of money. So if you can build great systems and budgets, and you learn to take care of the money that you have when you don't have a lot of it, actually as you get into a more financially secure position, all of those same tricks and strategies and amazing things that you were doing when you had less money work when you have more money too. So and I love that. I do.
Yeah, fantastic. And was it that like relationship with your grandmother and the kind of money background that she had that made you start looking after your pennies, or was it another influence in your life?
So I'm a numbers nerd. I've got a maths degree, so literally I'm like, ooh, numbers. Like, but no, it was I started looking after your pennies when I was on mat leave, and it's probably one of the hardest financial times to go through. you don't have a lot of money, and suddenly you have more responsibilities than you've ever had before. So this was with my second kid, and I was very much weighing up, like, do I go back to work full time? Because I'd gone back to work full time after my first kid, because I was like, I want to make sure I get the most money, if I have another kid. And then I was like, oh, I don't really want to do that anymore. So I was trying to cut back and learn how to make less money work for, my family, without kind of sacrificing too much. And, this was a whole, like, trawling through the internet, scrolling through articles, looking at Pinterest, looking at Instagram, and I was learning all these things. And I'd go, and then, like, I'd go to baby groups, and you'd be in the middle of, like, singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and I was like, have you read about this thing? And my mates were getting a bit bored of me, if I'm honest. And they were like, all right, like, chill out, Charlotte, we know we should be doing better with our money. So I thought I would go on the internet and look for people that actually weren't bored by what I was saying. And I found some people in the form of, like, a few thousand followers. So and it was just that moment, like, it was a tough financial point in my life, and I realized if I was struggling, there would be other people that were struggling, and then maybe those people weren't so numbers inclined as I was, and I could maybe help out in some way. So
fantastic. It's a fantastic thing to do, to be able to share what you've learned and also create that community for people like you who understand more about money. It's great.
Yeah, and I think it helped, like, I'm a maths teacher by trade, so I have at least some skills in being able to take big scary problems and turn them into something that's a bit more manageable and digestible. So I like to think that I was able to translate some of the skills from a previous career into what I'm doing now.
Yeah. So Charlotte, a bit earlier on you talked about kind of learning how to make money go further. And I know actually that back in 2019 you actually followed a kind of lifelong dream of yours and set out on a round the world trip with your kids. How did you manage to work towards that goal? That's quite a huge thing that I imagine quite a lot of us dream of doing one day.
Yeah, it's nuts when I think about the fact that we did that. I'm like, how did we do that? I think it very much helped that our kids were quite young, so we didn't have a social life of any description. So that was one way that we were able to cut back. But more seriously, it actually became very easy when we had this absolute laser focus on something we really wanted to do. And you sit there and you go like, oh, I want to save for a holiday, and you're like, you haven't picked out the destination, you haven't said, like, I want to go in June, you haven't put these things in place. Whereas we were like, September 2019, we're out of here, and we were just absolutely laser focused. So whenever there was a decision relating to money or something we wanted to buy, it was like, it's this or it's the traveling. And it would be like, we did with even like the tiniest stuff, like, it would be like, do you want a large meal from McDonald's or are you going to have the medium? And it'd be like, do we need the McDonald's at all? And it's like, well, yeah, because there's no other food, but we can go for medium because that extra quid that goes in the traveling. And it was just those decisions were just, it was right there was something so obvious. And obviously as the kind of that deadline, deadline's not a great word for something that you've dreamt your whole life of doing, but like as that date kind of drew nearer, it made those decisions easier because you're constantly thinking, we need as much money as we can, what can we do? But it was not only kind of like making some of those smaller sacrifices, there was also making money, and that it was like in 2018 was when I started looking after your pennies, and this had turned into sort of like at least a semi-lucrative sort of side hustle at that point. And that sort of helped, and it was like, right, so I'd go to work and then I'd come back, get the kids off to bed, and I'd work on the website, and we just made everything. I mean, we were really boring for a long time, but actually now we're really interested, so it's paid off.
Yeah, I mean, what a fantastic thing to do, and what a wonderful goal that I'm sure lots of our viewers today will also share. So just to remind everyone viewing today, the theme of this Instagram live is revolutionise your finances and your financial future in 2023. So we're going to be talking about all the ways that you can do that.
Yeah. And obviously, as you were just referring to before, Charlotte, obviously there's little habits that we do every day that really help us kind of meet those bigger financial goals that we might have in mind. Could you just explain a little bit more about what money habits are and how people can kind of begin to work on them, and how those are kind of tools that they can use to reach those bigger goals?
So I think the thing to just highlight here is that we all have money habits. What we don't necessarily have is good ones, ones that help us. We might have those habits that are, whenever we leave work on a Thursday, we go and buy a coffee shop or something like that. And I've got nothing against coffee. I love a coffee, but it's not necessarily working towards where we want to be. So there were some great books on the topic of habits, like Atomic Habits by James Clear is a great example. It tends to be a book I reread every January, so it's like, oh, like new year, new me, get that one out again. But this very much it's about those little things, it's about those little actions, and taking those votes towards what you want to achieve, what you want to do. So going back to when we were looking at, we were trying to save to go traveling, it wasn't like we made any drastic action. It wasn't like we went, oh, you know what, we're just going to sell our house and we'll use that money. It wasn't like I suddenly took on a second job. It was about the compound effect of taking smaller actions that are in the right direction and then just being consistent with them, and I think that actually that sounds a lot more manageable than going, I'm going to do something radical and hope that pays off, and it really does. So some good examples that people can take as kind of first steps would be things like making a habit of just checking your bank accounts. So this is something that we quite often, and I still find myself doing this from time to time. It's just burying our heads in the sand. Like we can be like, oh, I know that ain't going to be great. Like I know that there's something going on there, and I don't necessarily want to see. It's been a rough month. January had like 200 days. It's not great. But if we can start building that in as a habit, it doesn't have to be every day, but if you can just check in Friday morning or Monday morning if you like to go out at the weekends, just that will keep money at the forefront of your mind, and maybe you'll make some more, you'll think differently in the week ahead because you won't be just ignoring the reality of that situation. So that's a great example. It could be something, something small like setting up a direct debit, or just to move like £5-10 into your savings account like once a month. That's just a small habit. You might not even notice that money depending on your circumstances. It could be fairly insignificant, but it's that habit. It's like, what, I am a regular saver. I do it every month. Credit scores is another good example. You could just sign up to get like a monthly check on your credit score. That's, and then when that comes in, you check it and you're like, oh, it's just little things. It's about rewiring some of the things that maybe you haven't been doing. Like you'd get like a notification from your bank and you just ignore. Whereas now we're going to go, oh, I'm going to look at it. And it's just tiny little changes. And ultimately, when we start to focus on these things, we start to draw our attention, we draw our mind towards these things, we start looking for more opportunities and seeing more ways that we can change. And like I said, it's really hard. It's like when you you learn to run. You know, that's like a few weeks of running. And I went on this exact same journey back in like 2018 as well. I decided to like learn how to run.
Yes.
And I just thought I was going to suck forever. You know, I was like fully committed to just like, I'm going to hate running. I'm never going to be good at it. I'm always going to be slow. And I'm never going to see any benefit, you know, like it's never going to happen. But actually you start doing it, and you know, the first few weeks are just like and then, you know, week 6, week 7, week 8, then you start seeing, oh, you know, maybe my legs do look a little bit more toned. Oh, actually I can run to that tree and I can run a little bit further now. And this is what the same thing happens with these money habits. You know, like you're like, oh, I've only been saving £5 a month. Oh, well, now you've got 50. You know, like that's big. You know, that's considering you didn't even notice that fiver, and now you've got 50 quid. That's something you can actually do something with. So yeah, it's just about reflecting on the habits you already have, trying to do less of the ones that are bad, and finding a way to amplify some of the ones that are good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many people don't, they look at that, like with the running, they look at the end and think, I can never get that, that's so far. But if you take it kind of day by day, habit by habit, like each instance, and that can be really helpful, I think. Yeah, it's fantastic. So you mentioned there are a couple of things, you know, about being scared to look at your bank account sometimes, or, you know, having that kind of trepidation around money sometimes. How do you think that money and emotions are related?
Oh, like if they weren't related, we probably wouldn't be having this chat.
Sorry, we're in emotion sensitive light, so no excuse us for one moment.
I was just slightly nervous you've been locked in then, you know.
There we go. We've never had that before.
It's not happened before.
We're just going to have to get up and do a small dance routine every sort of 15 minutes or so.
We can factor it into the chat, you know, just
so sorry, you were saying emotions.
Yeah, like if we were able to separate the two, then this conversation wouldn't be happening. So much of just money management and just general anxiety in life comes from money, and you can't sit there and talk about, you know, mental health, physical health, education, all of these different things that we consider important in our lives, you know, family, friends, you know, all of these things. We can't talk about those in a way that's isolated from money. You know, we might think we can, but ultimately, you know, having money and feeling financially secure means that we will have better relationships with those people around us. We will feel, you know, safe in our environment. We'll feel like we have choices. We'll feel like you know, we're able to make bolder decisions. And when we don't have money, we're going to feel stressed. You know, that's when we're going to start seeing impacts on our mental well-being. It's going to feed into our physical well-being. You know, it's going to cause headaches, it's going to cause, you know, I don't know, weight issues. I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but, you know, we will see it. And if we don't have money, you know, like maybe, you know, some, you know, just buying the things that we need, you know, can't nip out and get the cowpole for the kids, for example. You know, like the money has an impact even at very basic levels. And when we think about emotions, particularly, it is everything about money has some sort of emotional effect. When we get money, we're like, oh, this is exciting, but then we immediately go, but what am I going to do with it? You know, like, am I going to make the right decisions? And if we don't have money, we're like, well, how am I going to get more money? Like, what are the impacts? And you know, then the tension starts to build up. So actually, it's practically impossible. And if anybody out there has figured out, you know, how to separate the two, they will be a very, very wealthy and highly sought after person. Unfortunately, I'm not that person because I don't think it's possible. But yeah, they're so intertwined that, you know, we can't do one. We can't really think about one without the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. A lot we often talk about people building like a better relationship with money. And I think sometimes it's helpful for us to try and kind of unpick what that means. So Charlotte, for you, what would it mean to have a good relationship with money? If someone was trying to improve their relationship with money, what kind of steps would you think they might want to take to do that?
Yeah. So I think if there's kind of like two things going on. There's like, how do we define a good relationship with money, and then what do we do to get there? I think it can be quite personal what a good relationship with money is for you. For me, it's about seeing money as something that helps me in my life. I like to think that when you have a positive relationship with money, like you're heading in the same direction. You've got like a tailwind, and it's pushing you to where you want to go. Whereas when your relationship with money is bad, you are constantly working against it. It's like, it's hard to make money. It's hard to keep money. It's all of these things start coming your way, and it becomes a real challenge. So when you get to a place where you have this positive relationship with money, everything, like, there's an element of ease and just calm in the whole situation. Now, practically this can look like having consistent income that covers your basic needs, which has been particularly challenging in the last sort of 12 to 18 months. It's about knowing where your money is going and having your money go to the places that you want it to go. Obviously we're always going to need to pay bills, but we want our money to go towards things that we approve of, whether if it's our electricity, maybe we want it to go towards green electricity rather than just the cheapest one that may be against our morals. It's also about having just systems in place that mean that like things happen automatically, a nice little automation. It's about knowing that in times of hardship that you have, you've got some money there, or you've got systems like access to credit that can support you if you want to have improvements. You want to buy a house, you want to you want to get out a loan for a car, or whatever it is, you've got access to that. So it's about this feeling of security, essentially, in all of these different areas relating to money. So how do you get there? Like, this has been a bit like, it's all right to define it. Just move on, but no, so I think the absolute starting point is to just be really honest about where you are now. If you are struggling, but it's about owning that in some sense. There is help out there for people who are really, really struggling with their money. There is support and things like that. If you're in a position where you're not like, it's not touch and go with your finances, but you're actually looking to level up, then there's so much amazing resources out there. The likes of Loqbox are just one fantastic example of there's amazing companies that are helping people to improve their financial situations. But you've got to know what you need. You've got to know what the problem is before you start even beginning to find a solution. So you need that bottom line. And then there's an element of prioritizing. What is the thing that you really need the most? And for most people, it's about dealing with the things that are like knocking on the door. And this could be debt. It could be literally people knocking on the door. It could be getting out of debt. It could just be building up that buffer of savings, so you're not constantly like derailed every time you car needs a new tire, or you get that notification so you need an MOT, or I don't know, something like that. It's about dealing with those pressing things. And then once you can start building in these buffers, you can then start progressing, and it's just little leveling up, putting a budget in place, and then building up a bit more savings, and then looking at are you getting the most out of your job in terms of income? Is there a promotion that's available? And then you start looking at pensions and investments and all of those other things. But it's a step-by-step process. But the absolute very start is just going, this is where I'm at and this is what I need. Where do I go from here? and prioritizing the steps that you need to take after that.
Yes, absolutely. And when people are struggling sort of with the emotions surrounding their money, when they're dealing with certain feelings, how can people kind of recognize when their emotions are having that impact on their financial habits? Like, what are the kind of things that people should look out for?
Oh, this is that's a tough question. So one of the things I really recommend is actually just tracking this, and it can just be, you know, like you might have a little diary or a planner or something like that that you carry around, and you know, like normally this comes out in the form of sort of some sort of sabotage, like emotional spending. It is, you know, it's, we're feeling sad, so we, you know, we buy ourselves that dress because, you know, we don't deserve to feel this sad, you know, we're better than that.
Yes.
Or it's, you know, jealousy, you know, like, oh, I can't believe such and such is able to afford that bag, you know, like, I want that thing. And so actually when we start tracking these things, we can start spotting some patterns in our behaviors. It is very, very hard to, once you kind of like get into that cycle of going, but I want it, you know, but I deserve it, but you know, I need it, you know, it's very hard to break away from that. So you almost have to build strategies in kind of like peace times. You know, like you have to be able to sit there and go, you know what, this is an issue for me, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all my cards from Apple Pay, or I'm going to you know, I'm not going to take my purse to work today, because I know that I always stop off at the petrol station on the way home for a bar of chocolate. Speaking from experience on that one, you know, like, and it's those little things, and you have to take action before they happen. You know, take the action when you're feeling good, because actually once you get into that cycle, if everything's there to make you, you know, if it's easy, then it's just gonna happen. So you just make it difficult. You put these barriers in your way. And if you know, you might find that you can have this sort of self-awareness where you're like, oh wait a minute, this is this slippery slope that ends in me like messing this up. And what you can do then is, if you can, distract yourself. You know, like, I always like to think of myself as a toddler in those moments, you know, and it's like, what shiny object can I dangle in front of myself that is like, you know, like, oh, look, a bird. You know, like,
a loud piece of plastic, can I see that?
And you know, sometimes it might be like, oh, you know what, you know, rather than nipping down the shop and getting that cheesecake or, you know, whatever it is, there's a lot of food related things here, because, you know, like emotional spending, emotional eating, they're like the same thing in my opinion. You know, or that, or like ordering a takeaway, or, you know, buying that dress. What other things are there? You know, what can you swap? One thing I like to do with emotional spending is I like to create a list of things that I need. And it's normally a really boring list, like toilet roll, you know, like coffee. You know, it can be interesting things, but it's things that you're going to buy, but you don't necessarily need to buy immediately.
Yeah.
You know, and it could be clothes. It could be like, oh, you need a new top, you know, a new set of vest tops because your last one's got holes in, or some socks, or, you know, like whatever. Things that you were going to buy anyway. Keep a list. And then save them for when you're on that slippery slope. And then instead you can go, you know what? You did need socks. You know, your socks have got holes in. You don't need that dress, but you know, you can meet this need by getting the thing that you do really need. So that's probably the only thing that I found to work when you're kind of already taking steps towards doing something that's going to sabotage your financial, you know, positivity.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, especially if you're, you know, lots of us get that little boost when we buy something, right? And that is a really great way of getting that, but doing it in a way that is actually beneficial to you, rather than just a momentary want or desire. So that's
So well, we're kind of roughly halfway through, so we are going to maybe move on to Q&A a little bit in a moment. We've got some really great questions from our members.
I did warn you that I like chatting, so
I love it. No, it's good.
It's all good.
We like chatting as well. But just at this point, when we're midway through, I just thought it'd be good just for anyone who joined since we started, just to quickly say, any Loqbox members out there who are looking to kind of get some support during this live tonight, please do chat to our support team. If you need to chat about your memberships, we'd love to be able to answer your questions live now. But your financial information is private. So if you head to the link in our bio, you will actually find a link that says Get Help, which is for our support team. So if there's any of those questions that you have, our team will be able to help you. But yes, we've got a few questions here to go through. So our first one here is from Christine. And she asked Charlotte, what tips can you give in regard to sticking to your budget when you have grown-up children who keep asking for money? She gave a little bit more context to this. So she was saying she's trying to pay off her credit cards at the moment and save for a property. But it feels like there's all these unplanned expenses that are coming up for her.
Kids are the worst because they literally pull on your heartstrings, and you know, like as a parent, you want to help your children in any way. You don't want them to go without. You don't want them to, you know, struggle or suffer in any way at all. And if you can, you want to do something. But there has to come a point where you go, you know what? It's going to be better for all of us if I can get myself in this financially secure position. And it's that whole, like, putting your oxygen mask on before you help somebody else. You know, like they say that, they literally go on a plane, they're like, do yours before you help your kids. And this is what you have to do with your finances. You are going to be far more used to, you know, literally anybody if you are in a position of financial security. And that might mean, you know, just telling people, you know what, just in the short term, you know, over the next couple of years or whatever it is, this is my focus, and this is what I'm going to be working on. And that might mean that I'm going to have to say no to you, and that doesn't mean I can't help you in a, you know, a support, you know, an advisory sense. You know, I can help you, you know, maybe get the money from somewhere else, or I can help you with whatever it needs. But, you know, the bank of mum and dad or whatever it is, you know, those doors are temporarily closed just while we get our house in order. And that can be really hard, you know, like I said, that your kids are, you know, your pride and joy, and you want to do everything you can. But it's about creating a, you know, a good foundation for the whole family, and then you'll be in a better position to help them going forwards. But yeah, it is tough, but communication is really the key. You know, Christine mentions here, it's like grown-up children. I don't know whether that means that they're like, you know, they've flown the nest, or, you know, they're just, you know, teenagers or whatever it is. But, you know, communication is key, and just being open and honest about that, you know, and that may encourage them as well to be more open about why they're asking for that support. And when you start opening up those conversations as a family, you can, you know, you get the benefit, you know, like 2 heads are better than 1, 3 heads are better than 1, and you can find solutions that might actually be more sustainable and beneficial in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice. And we've got another question here from Leon, and Leon wants to find balance and build financial security, but the cost of living crisis and looming recession with the UK is making it harder. Do you have any tips to help Leon in the face of everything that's happening in the world at the moment?
No.
Sorry, Leon.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
It's been tough. I've never been more in demand as somebody, you know, as a financial educator. But this is probably the first time in the last sort of, you know, 4.5, 5 years where I've, you know, like up until this cost of living thing, you know, raised its ugly head. You know, most of the time I was dealing with people, I'm like, it's your fault. You know, it's something you're doing. You know, you've probably got enough money. You know, obviously there are always those exceptions, and I don't want to, you know, be ignorant to, you know, certain privileges and the fact that, you know, some people just don't have. But up until then, it was like, yeah, there's probably something we can do, you know, I can help you out. And then the cost of living crisis come on, and this is, you know, something that is far bigger than most people's just money mismanagement. It's, you know, it's something that's happening across the UK and, you know, to an extent globally as well. That said, I think we can get hung up in what is going on in the world, and I read, you know, headlines all the time, and you know, BBC News, even on social media, that are telling me that, like, oh, you know, this many percent of people are struggling with this, and you can start thinking that that is impacting you. You know, that you might be one of those people, that you know, need to think about this more. And that's not necessarily, not all elements of that may be impacting you. You know, like a good example of this is electricity bills. My electricity bills have gone up, but actually with the, you know, the money that we've got from the government, and just by making a few little things around my home, it's not completely unmanageable. You know, it's a bit, but it's not like I could be sitting here in, you know, doom and despair based on what I've been reading in the media, thinking, how am I going to keep my children warm? But my personal situation is such that that hasn't hugely affected me. And there might be people that, you know, are listening to this going, well, yeah, it's been, you know, it's not exactly affected me too much either. Now, I'm not saying that's, you know, what the situation is, but there might be elements of that. So try and really focus on, you know, what your personal reality is. You know, like a recession, what's that ultimately, what does that mean to normal people? You know, it's a very economic term, but what does it mean? Oh, dance break.
Yeah. Dance break. Sorry guys. There we go.
But I think there are still things that we can do, you know, being, you know, trying to achieve the best we can with our finances. Certainly the cost of living crisis has meant that we have less wiggle room to be a little bit bad without finances. You know, like if you struggled with creating a budget before, well, you're going to be finding this a lot harder than people that had it sorted before. So let's work on that. Let's look at those things. Focus on, you know, yes, make some cutbacks, but also look at ways that you can make more money. And this could be going to, you know, it could be something as simple as going to your boss and going, hey, look, you know, I was great with that project, or, you know, I'm only working 35 hours a week. Could I come in, you know, an hour earlier and, you know, do a little bit more and get another 5 hours or something like that? You know, what options are there for you to find, you know, ways to make more money as well? Because I think we can go huge on the, like, gotta save, and actually there's another side to that coin, and that's, oh, what if I have more money? And, you know, this is a lot, you know, we're seeing lots of people striking for this exact reason at the moment. But, you know, if you're not in one of those professions, there are still things that you can do. You can still go and, you know, just speak to your manager, speak to your boss, and see if you can increase the amount you're getting paid, or look for promotions, or, you know, maybe relocate, try to have another job that's a bit closer to home, and you could save on fuel or, you know, travel costs. So there are things you can do, but I am going to sit here, hands up, this is the toughest it's ever been for the majority of people, and even people that found managing money, you know, quite comfortable and easy in the past, are now falling into that kind of bracket of people that need to step up with their, like, you know, financial management systems. I mean, it is hard.
And for people who might really be struggling, who might, you know, find that this has really impacted their lives,
yeah,
you recommend that they go for assistance or guidance on?
So there are some great support places out there. Citizens Advice is a good place to start. You've also got places like Step Change, who are, you know, a debt advice charity. These places can help. And if it's you know, if it's more financial, you can look at things like benefits calculators. You know, see if there's any money you could be receiving. And I recommend everybody just goes and checks that calculator, like, every few months. Go to, you know, there's like I can't remember all of them, like entitled to, I think it's one of them. You can go in there, you type in your details, you know, particularly if you've had a kid, or, you know, like you're circumstances at work, you might be entitled to more benefits. So look into that as well. But places like Citizens Advice will be able to support with that anyway.
Great, thank you.
And obviously the cost of living crisis is kind of a bit of a situation that's affecting all of us. There's also been quite a lot of people, several of our members, who told us that emergencies and unexpected expenses make it really hard for them to stick to good financial habits.
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations on what they can do to kind of protect themselves from those times, and what they can do to make those times a bit easier on them when they do come along?
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? Like, probably the key to financial security is having a bit of money in the bank, so that if those emergencies happen, you're not completely derailing your financial goals. But that's so much easier said than done. You know, I talked earlier in this interview about looking at where you're at and then prioritizing. I would say for most people who are looking to kind of turn a corner with their financial situation, working on building a kind of a savings buffer is probably step number one. Before you look at paying off debt, before you look at, achieving any big goals, because it is always those, it's that dodgy MOT that like it's going to mess everything up. It's it's the boiler or the broken washing machine, or just there's always an irritating thing, isn't there? There's one thing after the other. And building up that savings, yes, you're still going to be in a situation where you have to deal with that nonsense, whatever it is that's happened. But if you have some money there, that means that you're not freaking out, and thinking, where's this money? Like, where's it going to come from? You're going to be like, it's frustrating, it's annoying, I didn't want to use that money, but that money is there. So, a great place to start is just looking at what you can afford to put time. And again, it's taking these peacetime actions. It's doing the things, now when things are, steady and stable. You're not going to be able to do good, there's not. The smart money choices aren't available when you're desperately looking for 250 quid. That's when you end up getting loans or putting it on a credit card. Instead, you go by, okay, things are okay-ish at the moment. What can I do now? And it's assessing your finances and seeing what you can put aside, put into that savings account. If you get a little bit of extra one month, you do a bit of overtime, put that in the savings account, because it's probably the biggest impact to your financial well-being, and just feeling secure with your finances.
Absolutely. Having any sort of buffer is always and your financial health. Fantastic, thank you. So William is asking, he says he's not very good with money, so how can they strengthen their resolve and cut down on their spending? William's trying to save for a holiday abroad in 3 years' time, but says something like that can be quite hard to stay motivated for. So how can William help their resolve?
Firstly, William, stop saying you're bad at money. Like, the thing is, we're not taught. We're not like, nobody teaches us about this when we're kids. Like, we don't expect to, like, I don't know how to change the oil in my car because I've never been taught how to do it. But that doesn't mean that if I was taught how to do it, that I would, still not be able to do it. I could probably do it. So we have to think about the same with our money. Just because you don't feel like you're good at it now doesn't mean that you are going to be that way forever. So it's a little just like a kind of a mindset shift. If you identify as somebody who's bad with money, you are going to constantly be looking for ways to reinforce that belief in yourself. So stop saying that. That's the first thing. And then if you've got this goal, this is like when we went traveling, we were so consumed with this idea. It was like I said, we were really boring because it was all we talked about. But actually, that's what kept us really focused. So if you have a goal, I would try and give yourself as many reminders through your day about that thing. So going, I want a holiday in 3 years' time, when that's like too far away for your brain to engage with, particularly when, you know, we've got the cost of living crisis going on, you know, the electricity bills landed on the doormat, whatever it is, there's always going to be something that feels more urgent. That doesn't mean you shouldn't save for this, but you need to have, like, you know, put a picture next to the doormat of like this holiday, you know, find a location that you actually want to go to, set a date, talk to, you know, friends or family, you know, whoever you want to go with about where you're going to go, book it in, you know, like, can you pay a deposit now, you know, a small amount now, and then, you know, get to work with the saving, because you are going to, once you paid that money and you've got some, like, skin in the game, you're going to want to not lose that money. So you're going to take action, you know, put stuff on your fridge, put it on your phone background, you know, like, I have little reminders come up on my phone about my goals just through the day. So every day I'm like, oh, you need a beach house, like, awesome. Yes, I do. You know, and just things like that just keep me going, you know, going, no, like, don't do that silly thing with your money, keep working, because you've got bigger goals, you've got things that you you want to achieve, and break it down. Like, the mathematician in me says, right, it's 3 years away, that's 36 months, how much do I need in that time? Take it, divide it by 36, have a little tracker that you fill in on your fridge or next to your bed, check your bank accounts, have you made it, colour it in, like, make it really visual, and, you know, try and engage with the senses, make it look pretty, you know, like, have things, you know, can you set your alarm to be a sound like, oh, you know, not until you're on the beach, or whatever it is, like, what can you do just to constantly remind yourself of this, so that if you're on the verge of making some sort of dodgy, or, you know, or making a decision that's working against that goal, there's something not too far away that's going to go, oh, hey, you know, it's nearly holiday time. So yeah, I think just having lots of reminders, and it's just rethinking that little belief about not being good at money. You know, yeah, I'm not good at, you know, managing my money yet, but I am working on it, and I'm going to be better.
Yeah, great point. And, you know, that idea of constantly, or having things to remind yourself of what you're aiming for is great, or being able to break down that goal into smaller parts even.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We're actually, earlier on, we were talking a little bit about that kind of emotional spending side of things. We actually had a question from someone who wanted to stay anonymous, which is totally fair enough. They say that they're trying to be financially savvy, but often feel pressured to spend money on things like the latest makeup and that kind of thing. What tips do you have that can help people in general who might want to buy things that they enjoy and have those little luxuries, but also want to be a bit more mindful about money and trying to work towards other goals?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think assessing where these influences are coming from is a big thing. Are these friends? You know, are these people around you? And look at what their financial circumstances are. So you know, like, I have friends, and I'll be like, oh, they're on holiday, but then I'm also like, yeah, but I know they put that on the credit card, and then that sort of goes, you know, I'm not that bothered, you know, like, you know, there's a lot about, society tells us that it's all about keeping up appearances and, I don't know, ticking boxes, but ultimately, if you're not entirely convinced about, you know, whether people have those things, or how, you know, that, are they actually able to afford that, or is there something else going on there? And I think social media has a lot to answer for in terms of encouraging overspending. You know, we quite often, you can get caught up, you know, like, following different things and being like, oh, you know, like, there's the bag or makeup or whatever it is that I really like, I need that, you know, like, everybody's got it. And actually, no, it's just because you followed 3 people on Instagram that happen to be using the same product. Like, that's not everybody. So I think just doing a check-in on where those influences, where those I don't know, there's, you know, where those feelings are coming from, why you feel that you need that, and then just get rid of them, you know, or just like filtering them out. Social media, just like, oh no, you've got blocks, blah blah blah. If it's your friends, just, you know, look at the things that maybe, because I will bet that most of us look at our friends and just see all the things that they have that we don't, and you know that they are looking at you thinking the same thing, but it's very hard in that moment to engage with those emotions. But if we're doing it to them, they're doing it to us. And just reflecting on that. And if you really do want the makeup, there are like so many fabulous Instagram accounts that just do like dupes, like the like little one Aldi, like you know, like how to get this makeup, or you know, here's a bag that is fabulous, but you know, here's where you can get it from Primark and it practically looks the same. So yeah, look for those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and finding, if you do still want to engage in social media, finding those places where you're not being caught up in that instant gratification. This is the new thing, this is the unboxing, this is everything. Looking more like thrifting side of things, or stuff like that might be quite rewarding.
Absolutely. Vintage.
Love
a bit of vintage.
Love it. So one more question then, from our pre-sent questions from our members. And I think we've got a few comments from some of the people on the live, so we'll go to those in a moment.
Sure.
So Shona's goal is to lower their outstanding credit card balance as quickly as possible. Shona says, I make weekly payments towards my higher outstanding balance credit cards on top of the monthly payment. Is this a good option in the long run to paying off my cards?
Probably. It sounds like you're doing the right thing, Shona. Obviously, without knowing everything else that's going on, like if you've engaged in some sort of like loan shark activity with, you know, like a member of the mafia, and they're literally threatening to kneecap you, and you're like, well, no, I really must pay my weekly payments to, you know, my credit card. You might have other things that you need to deal with first. But ultimately, this sounds like somebody who has a strategy that is, you know, they're working towards some, you know, bigger goal, and they're taking regular and consistent action to achieve that. And I think, you know, as long as you can do that in a sustainable way, and you know, you're not you know, almost not like binging on trying to achieve these things, you know, like sometimes you could go too much, you know, focused on one thing, and you know, other areas of your life will be suffering. As long as you can do that in a sustainable way, and it's working towards, you know, where she's trying to go, then absolutely, like, it sounds like a positive thing to do.
Fantastic. Great. So we've had some comments come in with some questions from some of our viewers. The first one I've got here is, hello, been a Loqbox member. Please, what advice can you give me in getting a mortgage? So apparently this person has been searching for accommodation for about 6 months but hasn't been successful. So what's your advice for someone who is looking to get a mortgage, especially in 2023?
Oh, it is hard. You know, we've got like house prices are still high, and then we've got like no money. So, you know, this is not a great combination. Seeking advice is probably the best thing you can do. You need to know what your options are. You know, there are mortgage advisors, you can get advice for free. Just see where you're at, see you know, what action you need to take. Look at some of the other options that can support you with savings. So it could be that, you know, you might benefit from a lifetime ISA. You obviously check the rules and the regulations and make sure that's applicable to you. But look at some of those options that are out there. You know, it could be that you might benefit from shared ownership, or you know, some other sort of scheme or whatever that's out there. But the first step is, you know, speak to someone, go see a mortgage advisor. You know, those are the experts, and they will be able to say, oh, you know, with your income, this, you know, this is what you need to, you know, this is where you need to get to. I think we can spend as an entire species, we can spend a lot of time assuming that we know the action that we need to take, and actually, like a 30-minute conversation will tell us exactly what we do need to do to do that. And we can put that off. That's exactly the sort of thing I put off all the time. So I completely understand it. But yeah, find a mortgage advisor, ask around with like friends and families if they know anybody that you can trust, and go and start having those conversations. And yeah, create a plan, a trajectory for achieving that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, obviously, you know, for a lot of people, getting a mortgage is one of the biggest financial goals of their lives. So any and all information you can get together on that when you're preparing is always going to help. Okay, great. So we've got another question here from Alice EP19, who says, what is the best age to introduce money habits to children?
Oh, I love this question. Like from birth. And the thing is, I think we think that it has to be something that is, you know, isolated and planned and, you know, all of this. And actually the best thing that we can do for our children is make money a topic that is regularly talked about in our households.
Yes.
So whether it's good, whether it's bad, you know, obviously you're going to keep some of the, you know, that if there's some really tough conversations, you're not going to go, oh, you know, like, right, 3-year-old Timmy, come and sit down with mummy while we talk about bankruptcy. Like, you're not going to do that. But you can go, you know, like, you're like, we're going to the shop, you know, like, these are the prices, you know, is, you know, like, we want to go on holiday, like, how can we make that happen? It's a, you know, it's a bit more expensive, so what could we do? What things could we cut back on? You know, like, maybe we don't have a takeaway every Friday. You know, you are old enough to know that, you know, to realise the consequences of that. And we, like, in my household, we talk about money all the time. Like, it's such it's not a taboo topic, you know. Even if things are bad, you know, like, oh, you know, like, we spend a little bit too much. We like, my husband and I talk openly about, like, oh, okay, well, maybe we can cut back on this, or there's that thing we can do. And the kids are just there. It's as normal a topic as all dogs
time. Stubborn one this time. So there we go.
You're too still. This is what we need to be more like.
Good.
Yes.
Talk about money now.
But yeah, just normalise it. Just make it a part of, you know, make it as normal as asking, you know, like, how was your day at school? Or and it doesn't, you don't need to sit there and print out worksheets or go on special trips, or, you know, like, go, oh, like, family meeting, because, you know, it's that time. You just talk about it in a normal way.
I think we often feel this kind of immense fear about talking about money, but actually, we've like been talking about money, the three of us, and like all of the other people viewing, for almost an hour, and I've been really enjoying it, and I think they have too. But that does bring me to say, we only have a few more minutes left, so there is a question we tend to ask people towards the end of this, and it is, if you personally could only share one tip for people who are trying to improve their relationships with money, what would it be? But if you could also explain why, that would be really, really great.
Yeah, God, this is a hard question. I got so many things. One tip, I think I would say to people is just about being honest with yourself about finances. We can often, you know, start off, you know, January is when most people go, you know what, I'm only going to spend 73p on food this month. And you're like, that is not being honest with your ability to cut back and save. If I think, you know, even myself, you know, I talk about money all the time, and I have to have these moments where I'm like, oh, you know, like, maybe I've not thought about this, you know, enough. Maybe I'm not being realistic in, you know, the goals I'm setting. Maybe I need to just scale this back a little bit. So I would just say, like, try not to create this kind of like false narrative in your head about your finances. And that can be, you know, like, positive, you know, everything's okay. It could be negative in that, you know, like, my money sucks, like, I'm never going to be good at this. Just look at the facts. Ultimately, it comes down to the, you know, money in its basic form is just arithmetic. It's just adding and taking away. So if you can try and just look at it with a little bit of with a little bit of simplicity and being real about your situation, it is going to make probably all the difference to the next steps you take and the journey that you find yourself on.
Yeah. Fantastic. I think being honest and having that integrity with yourself about your finances is really important and really helps then your relationship with money and your relationship with other people around money as well. So
absolutely
great advice. Well, that is the end of our time today, Charlotte. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been great. Thank you for talking about revolutionising your finances, coming up with great good money habits. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Yeah, like I say, it's like my favourite thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Second only to maybe talking about myself, but this has kind of been a bit of both. So it's all good.
And if people want to follow you on social media, where can they find you or find out?
Yeah, I am at Looking After Your Pennies. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Just type that in to the internet.
Great. That's all combined.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Charlotte, and have a lovely evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you to everyone who joined us for our live event today. We hope this has been helpful, and I'm sorry we didn't get through every question. Maybe we'll be looking at a part 2 in the future. But thank you for the questions, Charlotte. Thank you for your fantastic advice, and we'll see you all soon.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.